Hello. So I have thoughts on first loves, and I'm currently 18, turning 19 this year. I have only had fallen in love with one person in my life so far, and that relationship taught me a lot of things about myself, and it led to a lot of epiphanies, a lot of realizations down the line. So I kind of owe that person a lot of things, essentially, and that relationship too. It was only a really short amount of time that we spent together as two people who agreed to be in a relationship, technically. But we have known each other for quite a while. It dates back like since I was 12 or even 11. I can't seem to remember, but something like that. So the thing with um, first relationships is that they kind of really open your eyes into how falling in love feels like. It's new, obviously. I have no prior experience of falling in love with somebody until I felt it, and I'm like, oh, that's actually how it feels, you know? And the first time that I kind of realized that is when I started to, like, when you cry because of a person, that just means you care for them. Like, you genuinely care for them. And yeah, like, the first time that I shed tears for this person is the first time I also realized that, hey, I actually do genuinely care for you, and I would love to experience the love back. However, like I said, this relationship also taught me deep parts about myself that I wouldn't even realize if I did not enter this relationship. Um, for me, the first thing is that love is a two-way thing. And I know this sounds like a common sense, but I feel like I've never really understood that before. From what I tried to do during that relationship is I tried to fit this person in a box, kind of, and try to fit our relationship into a box where for me it's predictable. Like I know how to manage it. It's controllable. But obviously, this person fitting in a box is not going to happen. Like, we have ideas of our ideal relationships, and we try to implement them, obviously, to the real relationship if we do have one. But the problem with that is sometimes we work in theory, but in practice, like when you have an actual real person that you are in partnership with, it becomes complicated because they're human. We human beings are complicated. We have our ups and downs, we have our good sides and bad sides. And sometimes there are situations where you have to choose to see the good of a person, to acknowledge the bad of the person, while also kind of just setting boundaries for yourself and for them. Because there are certain situations in a relationship that are just bad for the both of you. And that's also how I realized how I put up my boundaries. I kind of thank my past self for that. I learned how to put up boundaries. I learned how to not, as much as I can, people please, not solely focus on what the other person is, um, what the other person expects from me. But at the same time, I do also acknowledge that I lacked the ability to see from my partner's perspective. I always saw the relationship from my perspective. You know, I always sought for validation, and I always made sure that the relationship is predictable, which it isn't. Relationships and humans aren't predictable, they're messy, and that's part of the process. Another thing that I kind of also realized is that when you love someone and you love them in your own way, you also have to understand that sometimes they may not perceive it as love because they have their own perception of what love looks like in their life. we come from different backgrounds, we come from different upbringings, the way different love styles or love languages are. And sometimes the person that you're with does not fully understand how you love them. Even in your eyes, you are completely, utterly, like, devastatingly loving them. And it may sound a bit dramatic, but it's true that a part of knowing someone is knowing how they want to be loved. That is one of my biggest mistakes. I think that I realized in this relationship is that I have been loving this person my own way, that I did not consider if they are actually perceiving it as love. Not just care, not just like, but love. And that is something that I it's just a really big realization throughout this whole relationship that I had. And another thing is that first loves don't usually last. And that's because literally my first love is out of my life now. But I've heard like some people in my life, the person that they are, sorry, their first love is typically not their end game. And that is totally okay. I feel like people just have to come and go in our lives, and that's completely fine. Like, we learn from these people, we take them in, they leave some part of them in us. And sometimes, if the situation calls for it, we have to let them go. And I feel like that's completely fine. I don't, um, I don't believe in forcing people to be in your life just because they've been there for a long time, or they've been there because, they've been there in a significant position in your life. So obviously, letting go of a person you have loved is bittersweet, mostly bitter at the first months. But as you look things in retrospect, they make sense. It takes a lot of courage to like look back at your mistakes, my personal mistakes, and actually acknowledge that I have wronged this person. It took a lot of courage and also like a lot of audacity for me to look at the relationship and acknowledge that I was wrong. Like it's just a big blow to my ego, you know. I feel like I'm always a person that has a big ego. I feel like I have to be a bigger, not a bigger person, that's not the word for it, but like the more superior one in that case. So I feel like it also reflected on the way that I treated other people, the way that I treated the people I love. There has to be kind of a superiority within me that emanates sometimes, and maybe that's something that blocked or hindered the way that I loved a person. So that's my thoughts for my first love. And I will see you in the next video.